Welcome everybody to the second webinar in this series. The last one was about a month ago and it was on child-centered education. This webinar, our topic is talking with children. I'm Nagini, this is Kamla, this is Sachin. And to start off, we'll play a pre-recorded conversation between the three of us, which was lightly scripted. It goes for about 35 minutes or so. And then we can open it up for about an hour after that for some questions, which we request that you type out the questions on the chat screen. And we'll take as many as we can. Hopefully we'll get several. As you may have heard, this is being recorded and it will be uploaded for viewing on YouTube later on. So shall we begin we'll play our pre-recorded conversation now.
We will also share the link on chat box. So if you want to watch it separately, you can do that also. Can all of you see the link and the video? Okay.
You're also sharing, right?
Yes, we are sharing the video too. Hope you all can see. Yes, Raju is saying yes. Okay.
So the topic of today's webinar is conversing with young people.
We are not able to hear the audio on the video.
Okay, one sec. We will restart and we'll keep it on unmute.
Just say share audio. It's on YouTube.
Okay.
So the topic of today's webinar is conversing with young people, which for us means talking together with our students, whether young children or the slightly older children. And I thought today what we could open up is, what do we mean by this? Why we feel it's important? How we go about it? And then any challenges that we've faced over the years and, what have we learned from that? So shall we open it up like that?
Yes. I think we can start with the why. And it seems pretty clear to me at least that this kind of space is necessary. Right? Because if you look at most educational spaces, the relationship between teacher and student is essentially, it relates through academics, right? Primarily.
Yes.
And in this space, the dialogue space that we're calling, here the student and teacher, they are at the same level and we are talking about life that is slightly beyond academics. And it is a space where we are both are equal. So to have such a space where we both are just learners, I feel it's quite precious to have in all spaces, and especially in schools.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I was thinking of the many spaces in school that we have for such conversations. For instance, our dialogue classes once a week with one or two teachers. Then if I'm a coordinator, I could have a coordinator time or a group lunch with my group to chat, to talk, converse. There are the Wednesday meetings, or rather once a week meetings with hostel students and teachers to discuss. We have, of course, in the middle of any class, if something comes up, I think we all feel it's more important or as important to go into that than to continue with learning fractions or whatever it is. And then the mentor meetings that the senior students have, the one-on-one mentor meetings between a senior student and a teacher is an important space as well. No?
Right. Yeah. Just to make clear for the listeners, when we are using this word dialogue class, what do we mean by this? And so it is a semi-formal space, so weekly meetings in a particular group, and one or two teachers are there, right? And as you said, Nagini, that there are so many other avenues for this kind of conversation. I think it is good to have these dedicated spaces too, right? So can we talk a little bit about the purpose of such a space?
Just remembering long back in junior school when we asked the junior school children, so what do you think dialogue class is for? And one of them said, it's for, we think of all the bad things we have done and then we come and share it. So it was hilarious at one level. But there was some truth in it, I think, in the following sense. We bring to these classes things that are troubling us.
Yes.
Right? And that could be traced back to something bad someone has done. But the point being, very quickly moves into a more open reflection. It doesn't stick at the finger pointing.
Right.
No? Yeah, it's true. And I think, interestingly, the themes that emerge are very similar for young children, older children, and frankly, they're relevant to us as adults as well.
Yes, I think quite true. As an example, a question like, why do we talk behind other people's back? It was raised by a middle schooler. But I'm sure it is very relevant for a 9-year-old or a 19-year-old, us, and also 90-year-old age. Right? So for a 9-year-old, it may be grounded in a particular incident with particular people, and for other people, it may not be there, right?
Yeah.
And for a younger one, it might start with finger pointing, like you did, she did, and so on and so forth.
Yeah. But the point being, it moves quickly to a reflection, like, no, I do that too. And it can even move to some very insightful questions. Simple. Recently, a 12-year-old said she was sharing how her group of friends has turned their attention from her to a newcomer. And the question she asked was, but why do I want to be liked?
Wow.
That kind of gets to the heart of the matter. And I think you're right that young children can have some quite profound insights into the workings of our mind. I recall long time, more than a decade ago, when my child graduated, or student have graduated, but a child who often got easily hurt saying, I've made up my mind not to get hurt. And his friend turned to him and said, how can you make up your mind not to get hurt when it's the same mind that's making you hurt? Wow, I thought, yeah, that's from an 8-year-old was kind of So, yeah, listening to all this, we can say that one purpose of dialogue class is it provides a space for this kind of reflective question.
Yes, that is.
Yeah,
I would also like to add this particular space, which we are calling dedicated space and so on and so forth. The spirit of it needs to be clear. It has to be non-judgmental, right?
Yeah.
And I want to emphasize this because we've said that the bad things that we do are right, and these are the things that we bring to the class. But I feel in this space, if we can look at ourselves without the voice of judgment and just as a matter of curiosity, I think there's a tremendous possibility to learn about oneself. So then that is not allowed in other spaces. And I think even at middle school ages, like let's maybe at very young age may not be possible, but by middle school, students are able to move away from the particular incident to a more general inquiry, right? And they can ask questions such as like, why do I feel anger or jealousy, or why do I do this or that? And something as profound as why do I feel a sense of division from other, and what does it do to me, and what does it make me do?
I just want to see, I understand the non-judgmental part, but wouldn't you say that part of the dialogue is there is a message of the right thing to do, no? That what is right in this situation. I'm just saying because that is
I feel it comes in. It certainly comes into my mind, and it must come in the children's mind. So it is not just simple curiosity. It doesn't stay there.
I think that is quite a tricky place to be in and actually decide that I will be non-judgmental. So it is quite difficult. I think this example explains it quite well. So let's say I encourage, as a facilitator, I encourage an open dialogue about gossip cultures at school. Let's say we take that point. And a student who said very insightful thing, let's say today, indulging the gossip tomorrow or maybe sometime later in the day. It's very confusing. How do I respond to that? Or what was that? Or what is this now? Those kind of questions.
So there is definitely a big gap between what we say and how we behave, and this is true for everyone. Okay. And I'm not even saying that it's a hypocrisy. It's not a form of hypocrisy. It's a genuine gap because we all are able to see ourselves at times. We are able to understand and we can articulate, but we remain resistant to feeling. Right? I think all I'm saying is that the dialogue space, is it a mutual space? Am I not communicating something about right behavior? And aren't the kids going to be either picking it up from me or they are there before me?
Yeah. So I mean that's the thing. I mean, I think this is important. That the purpose of dialogue is to understand something, not with the motive of going in and changing it. It could be a process of opening things up, of sharing the content of our thinking, our emotions, and in a space that neither condemns it nor justifies it. We can quickly go into these otherwise. And can we understand and see the whole thing together? And then, the efforts to change, they can quickly come in, and then there is conflict also there because this is what I am, that is what I'm expected to be, or that's what I want to be. So can those also just be observed and seen? Yeah.
It is like that student asked, you are the same, it's the same mind who's making you upset. Yeah. But I think that is what you said now, that is the point I think of dialogue, the purpose of this space. Because you see that in most educational settings, the relationship or the role of the adult or a teacher is to correct students' behavior and to mold them into what is considered appropriate behavior. And here we are trying to attempt something completely different. Yeah. So it is difficult. It is not neutral. It's easy to understand in that way, and we should keep that in mind. But I still feel that there is a need for such a space, at least this space, where we don't judge, don't modify, don't try to moralize even, right? But maybe just sit together and examine life.
I appreciate this very much. I think I'm saying that it is extremely difficult.
Yes.
So let us acknowledge that this line is often crossed. And like you said, watch it.
Yes.
One of the things that helps me in these conversations, and I mentioned it earlier, but it's to realize how similar we all are in junior school, middle school, junior school, and adulthood as well. There are very similar patterns of thinking and feeling. And so this makes the dialogue spaces different in quality, I think, from say a math or language class, where hopefully I as a teacher know a bit more and I'm conveying, trying to teach some content. Whereas in these spaces, there is more a feeling of equality. I think you mentioned it earlier, and so this sense of knowing more, knowing less is not there at all.
Right. Yeah. Sense of authority. No one is authority in that space.
Yeah, it can be.
Yeah. So, but hold on. You said that we think similarly, or the patterns of thinking.
Yeah.
Fair enough. But wouldn't you say, like, if someone from outside the school, let's say that person is visiting, and this person sits in different classes, and one in junior school, one in middle and senior school, and we are having dialogue. wouldn't they see considerable differences? Like it won't be same, right?
Okay.
And can we just shed light on that?
Yes, definitely. Like a junior school dialogue class, you'll notice the children are very open, they're non-defensive when they're sharing, they listen openly too. Quite,
Yeah. And I think they tend to be more personal and stick to the specific events that happen in the day of their life. And going from that specific to the more general is a bit difficult, not so easy for them.
often also they don't have the vocabulary that, to express clearly what they're feeling or
Nuances, yes.
Another difference that's coming to my mind now is how they view others, right? How they perceive. So till a certain age, they're like very open, just like it seems like they're just pouring out everything that's there inside. And then suddenly there's a gap. There's a pause almost. And adult viewers is slightly suspect, and the walls come up and so on and so forth, right?
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, when you talk about walls, to a certain point, the conversations do flow quite easily. In fact, too much information. And then, like you say, suddenly there's a long silence, there's a reluctance to share until a few years later when things can open up again in a different way, which is nice. But yeah, let's, as you suggested, just go into what it is, say, in a senior dialogue, the dialogue with the older students, we can come to this.
Right. And we can consider middle school somewhere in between. Okay. So could we say that the seniors are essentially young adults? Right? So at this stage, they seem at least quite capable of moving from particular to this another. And at this point, the vocabulary is also a bit better. Let's keep it at that at least. And at this point, they're also able to express and articulate their feelings, their responses quite clearly, I guess.
And I think the questions concern both what is happening in the world around them and also their own psychological and emotional landscapes.
It's interesting. There is an emotional maturity, but it's also a very tough time. Right? There's so much emotional churning, there's mood swings, and actually, interestingly, this is just what the adults are not doing. This can remain hidden actually throughout hours and days of dialogue.
Another thing that I think that they go through is issues related to sexuality, right? And these issues, which play really, really important role in their life at that stage, they're not going to come out so easily in such space. Right? We would like to, that's a different thing, but
yeah, but on the other hand, some very deep dialogue can happen around the whole issue of a child's identity and her place in the world. I mean, her role in the world. Things like, how will I fit into this world, or what is my future going to be like, or what do people think of me? Preoccupied many of us, I'm sure. And they're also beginning to deal with issues of individual and society. To grapple with that.
Actually, it's very exciting to be in conversation with them at this age. Yeah, because they're quite sophisticated. Yeah. One thing I wanted to ask you guys, do you not feel though that the peer group exerts quite an influence even on these opinions, even on their views on individual society, worldview, right?
Yeah, I think so. And I think there's a strong feeling that the peers understand their world and get them, and that we adults don't really get it. So while there's a lot of animated talk with each other, in the more formal dialogue space, there can be a reticence or even silence at times.
Yeah. Maybe this peer culture, I think it's a good topic to reflect upon, no, during these dialogue spaces. Why I'm saying it is, you see that most of the students, they are from similar background, and like places that they live in, it's very homogeneous, if we can use that word. So, they can be lost in themselves, that whole echo chamber idea. So don't get me wrong here also, because I see peer culture or peers enabling certain things. So,
Yeah,
but surely, I think for many students, it allows them to remain in that bubbled space where they can continue with their opinions, judgments, and not really meet life at its challenges.
You use the word bubble, right? Media is a favorite topic of ours, and the media definitely, I mean, it has a hold on us, and it definitely has a hold on young adults. And I think subliminally or crudely, there are messages being sent. It's shaping and conditioning their minds. And I think there are probably these ideas of a very glamorous, exciting lifestyle that we should all aspire towards. And comparatively, our daily life can appear rather drab and boring.
So actually, I'm listening to you both. I think these are twin forces that come together in a very interesting and powerful combination. And then that is why these dialogue spaces are so precious, valuable, because here's where you can begin to just even see these as influences and not as truths. Right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And as you said, Kamala, the dialogue is such a great space for it.
Yes.
Because of the spirit of it in some way, right? Because the way we are going there is as equals. Of course, we have a little bit more knowledge. Let's not kid ourselves about that also. But surely it's, we also realize that our emotions, our thoughts, our influences, they're left most of the time unchecked. And we also call it's only natural, right? And they're not challenging. We can go on with this for a very, very long time and if we don't talk about it. So in this space, where we truly are equal, again, maybe we are reinforcing it, that we can look at it together, that spirit of being equal, and all these things can also be questioned for us and for them.
Yeah. Can we spend a little time on the nature of this space that we create? In the sense, what it is and also what it is not. For example, it's not like group therapy, right? It's also not a substitute for what we used to call moral science class. It is not that. It's also not a problem-solving space where you bring your problems and together come up with a solution. It's not even a space for making conclusions, right? So, what kind of space is it?
Yeah, we can go into that a bit. So sometimes I myself, and I've heard them use words discussion or debate used synonymously with dialogue. So I just want to take a moment to differentiate. So it's not a discussion or a debate. We're not trying to convince each other or make the best arguments, right? Maybe we could consider dialogue as a space where all those involved are on the same side, and we're all trying to examine something together, question ourselves, find the truth of a matter perhaps from our own observation of ourselves and the world around us.
Right. I would also like this space, especially for young adults, I would like to help them see that there is something beyond what they're fixated on, their ideas and all that, right? Give them a certain perspective and help them to detach from the problem and look at it from various point of views. A deeper understanding and
in that way, there's this understanding that the inner world of emotions and thought and so on, it's reflected in the outer world, in society at large for that one.
So perhaps the primary intention is to create a space where there can be open and free communication between adults and children, a space where all can share their thoughts and feelings in a space where there is no fear of judgment.
Yes.
And as part of that, I have cautioned some groups over the years that, when you go outside, don't quote someone out of context. That has happened. And so, because obviously that person is going to be cautious about sharing something again. Yeah.
It would be nice, I think, to share stories of dialogue classes that did not go well. For one reason or another, there are many like that. Because I think we can learn from those situations. You know, what went wrong, what doesn't work. For example, I remember once I was with a group, when the group went through a phase of suspecting each other, thinking that whatever I say I'll be teased about it later. There was just no trust within the group. And during that time, dialogue classes were silenced.
That issue is something to go into itself and change that.
Yeah, we tried.
So this time I remember that we were with senior school students, we were talking about gender issues and sexism. And being an adult, I'm aware of the sort of what we can call ugly aspects of society, right? And in the dialogue, I think it was quite automatic almost that I brought that aspect to the class. Maybe later when I was thinking about it, I should not have, maybe I could have gone slower. And I think that it was not fair on them. So I would say that as an adult, if I'm facilitating a dialogue, we must be very cognizant of the idea that I hold about life. And I should not bring those as strongly as I did. Maybe there need to be a core that also needs to be questioned.
I think you're right. I mean, I guess you need to start from where the students are.
I remember class where, a child is yawning. I would have just asked a question and I would have yawned. Sometimes we are sulking because something will happen outside class. These are not very understandable. But then how did I deal with it? Sometimes I pointed it out and I paused, but sometimes I ignored it. I don't really know what the best thing to do is in that.
But it could, I just want to say the opposite part of it. That sometimes student or anyone for that matter may not be able to respond because what we are talking about is too close to the heart.
Yeah.
And they are not able to be vulnerable, open in that particular time.
Yeah. And when I have asked why were you so quiet, sometimes they've said that I thought I had to come up with a complete sentence of answer, or sometimes they feel they have to be profound. It is not so, but they feel that, and so they hesitate to bring up something that's half thought.
Yes.
Sometimes. Yeah.
And here, maybe one of the dangers we adults could look out for is that let's not be too quick to intervene, and definitely not to correct a particular opinion of a student, because then obviously they may not open up the next time, and some young adults are even suspicious of this process of having such conversations, or they might think it's pointless talking about it, or they've been doing this for so long.
Yes. Have you moved? Have you changed?
Yeah,
Transformed? Yes, that is true. Okay, so now that we've shared the difficulties and what hinders the dialogue, can we talk about some certain things that we keep in mind, which can help positively, practically even, to create a space for meaningful dialogue?
We can do that, but let's be careful that these guidelines should not be like a list of rules to be followed verbatim. We need to take the spirit of it. And I think, except that it's impossible to have a set of instructions that can be followed every time. So keeping that in mind.
So keeping what you said now in mind, the spirit of it rather than the content, I think I can start. So something that we do here, which we make sure that we sit together in circles. We sit comfortably, but not casually. And I think it's quite important to keep that in mind because not being casual will bring certain seriousness, certain sincerity and importance. Right?
You can't scroll and have it.
Well, some kids do. Okay.
Yeah,
That's for another day.
and I think for a dialogue with younger age groups, the adult is the facilitator and sometimes the initiator as well. So you will have to give direction to the conversation, but not to the extent of constraining it.
Yeah, actually, you want to explain why we give direction, because why can't it just be a free flowing chat?
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, we all enjoy that, and I think that we can give time for that. But I think that there is a certain sense of coherence and satisfaction when the dialogue has remained focused.
Even in the kids.
Yeah, that's what I mean. With the children also, there's some focus to it. And of course, as the students grow older, it becomes an even more equal space, if I can say, because now the students can take on that role of facilitator, initiator. And of course, whether it pans out like that, it's a different story. It can vary from group to group, but the intention is there.
So, and I would say then we should also have a topic as the adult.
Yeah.
I would have a topic or a question in my mind before I enter the chat, in case. But leaving space always for a student to come up with something.
Just to extend that chit chat session, what can happen? I think surely it can happen, especially very young ones. They like to relate to stories, and so I think time can be given. But I think we should also make sure that we move from particular areas. And if they stray off on a tangent, gently guide them back to the question at hand while allowing for little bit of detail.
So it feels like there's a lot of play in this.
Yes.
Definitely. Other thing is, we should ensure participation by every child.
Well, Kamla, I wouldn't say that we must ensure participation from everyone. And I'm sure you would also agree with it, that silent listening is value.
Yeah, it does. I think I'm worried about switching off. In that sense.
For those situations, we can use simple techniques. Like we go around and ask, like, okay, what do you think about it? And we go around, everyone speaks and then.
Yeah, sometimes I do this. I kind of have a running track of a child who has not spoken for a long time, and then I direct a question. I've done that.
Yes, I guess you can do that, but as long as the student doesn't feel put on the spot.
That's my sentence.
True. I think I'm one of those who may feel awkward around long silences, but perhaps long silences are actually not only all right, but are necessary. As I think you see. So I think some children need time to formulate their thoughts fully, formulate full sentences before they're willing to speak them. And for others, it's just a thinking aloud process, stream of consciousness. But I guess you just have to give enough time for each child to share whatever it is they want to share. But also one other thing I was just thinking is, for adults, I think in our role, we should be really careful that, we never compare students in terms of what they have shared. So whether it's a half-thought sentence like you mentioned earlier, or a full thought, or we should just be careful that we don't compare the content of what they say and praise one and put down another.
Yeah,
that we have to watch for.
Although I do often say that's a beautiful question.
Yeah, I think I do that well, but Ray could do a topic for another webinar, maybe. Let's do it to that.
That is, that's so I hope our conversation gives all the listeners some, I think, I don't want to call it guidance, maybe some topics, some sense actually that they can engage with young adults, maybe with each other also. But this is focused on young adults. Right? So shall we end with some topics that we can suggest that invariably work at all?
Yeah. Some questions have answers that are known, or you can look it up, it's knowable. But the dialogue questions are those that there is no authority on, and one learns about them through observation and sharing in that space at that point. Those are the ideas.
Yeah, these I think they are called dialogue questions by the children. And I think that children over the years do start to understand this distinction quite well. So some methods that we can try are having a question box where we write something on a piece of paper, put it in and pick it out every week, be anonymous or need not be anonymous. At the beginning of the class, we give time for children to bring up something, like you said. We have something in the back of our mind, but have them bring up something. Or for every week of the term, perhaps have a child volunteer or volunteer them in turn to bring up something. So they have time, they have a whole week or more to think about it.
Now, I want to caution ourselves here that when we say dialogue question, it has this feeling of being profound in some ways. It can put some spirits off. Not that they should bring like, what did I eat this morning? Those kinds of things. So maybe now let's list a few topics. And please feel free to add. So topics that work and we have used and we have come up again and again. Competition, right? Competition, kindness, fear.
Why are we being educated?
Yes.
Like kindness, we've talked about helpfulness, or also boredom and restlessness.
Oh, yes.
Freedom.
Freedom.
Freedom and
Yes. Questions about war. I think that keeps coming as poverty. Yes.
Friendship.
Yes, relationship, friendship, and love.
Media and sexuality.
Yes.
Or something like this is something interesting, that why do we always want things to go our way? Right? It's an interesting question. So essentially I'm thinking because all of these things are something that is connected to our daily life, what we see outside and what we experience personally also.
Yeah, but I just trying to remember the gem that came up. Someone told me, why is it when we are doing something we like doing, and someone asks us to do something else, which usually we like doing normally, but now we didn't want to stop doing the first thing. We do the other thing as well as we would have done it if we just done it by itself in the first place. Got it. Okay.
I'm completely lost.
No, I got it. No, this is a student act. I did completely.
I'll ask the student again.
Okay, but we should wind up, I think. Before we do, I wanted to say something about, the beginning you said there are so many spaces we have conversations with young people. That is true. We have focused only on the dialogue space, but I feel like the spirit of dialogue can be present in any interaction. Even the brief one, by which I mean an open listening, a suspending of strong opinions,
questioning the assumptions that we come from the conclusions that we don't even realize we've reached sometimes.
So before we end, I would also like to add something. What we have discussed today, we feel like, at least the listeners, there is a long list of instructions or things to do.
Do and don't.
Do's and don'ts.
It's,
It is not right.
Mhm.
And I think we need to get the spirit, as Nagini mentioned a while back, rather than the details.
Mhm.
And maybe I feel that what Kamba you said at the end, that is the spirit of dialogue. To live it actually, not just in that specific time, to live it, to essentially what all you said. I don't want to repeat all this.
Yeah.
And just not hold on to ideas very strongly, because that's what
And
ends up
it's about affectionate relating.
happening. So thanks both of you. It was really, really nice conversation.
Nice morning for us.
Yeah, I think I learned some things about that.
Welcome back. I hope that the audio and video were clear. We've got a couple of comments saying they weren't. I hope that's sorted. This will be recorded and can be viewed in any case. So now we could spend a little time, say about 45 minutes or so. If you have any questions, and we'll try to address those. And if you could type the questions in the chat box, please. We just request that you don't type comments to the questions, just so that we're able to view the questions clearly and there's less clutter. If you have any technical issues, however, please do put them in the chat box. We'll try to address those as well.
Maybe we should wait for 2 more minutes or 2-3 more minutes, because a few people went and clicked on YouTube link. They might still be watching.
Yeah.
Just for a few minutes, we will wait.
Yeah, but you can type
Yes.
in your questions, and also, by the way, any responses you had to what you heard would be nice to hear.
Yes.
Yeah.
This. Wait a couple minutes or yeah, you can listen.
Mhm.
Yeah. Do you want to? Oh,
We'll read the question and then
Yeah.
see there. It's not like we have definitive answers to any of these. These are very nice questions, but we can just offer responses, I guess. Shall we do the first one?
yes. We'll take it in order.
Yeah. Post dialogue, do the energies change? Are there any expectations post dialogue? So I'll take this to mean expectations among the adults, at least for now, this question. Yeah, I think we alluded to this in our conversation, that expectation is a constant possibility. It's always there, that one expects something out of a conversation, one expects some improvement, some change for the better. And like we said, really, we are trying to see if this space can be so non-judgmental that one can look at one's patterns and habits and what one has done, so to speak, just like one can look at a frog or a flower. I mean, this is the challenge, actually. I can't say that we are there much of the time, but that's the hope, that's the attempt.
Also, I think in dialogue, it's because we are relatively relaxed, it allows for possibility of our watching our expectations and what it is doing to me while the expectations are forming, how the dialogue is changing because of that.
Mm.
So dialogue is not just for children to be modified, to be changed. It's for all of us.
But I think we also mentioned, Dharmaraju, in that conversation that let's watch for those movements, no, because we immediately want to go there. Like I'm here, but I should be like that, or I'm expected to be like that. And then that brings a lot of conflict as well, potentially. So maybe just opening that up and shedding light on that in that dialogue, that, yeah, maybe that's all there is. And, but yeah, like Kamala said, expectations are there in all our minds all the time, in everything we do, I think. I think we need to watch for that. And that's what he had given an example of gossip cultures during that recording, gossip cultures in school. And then how to, as an example of, we talk about it and then again it happens. So I think we just, yeah, there may be expectations. Are there any? Yes, but let's watch for that. And how do we then respond to each other? Not just children, each other as well.
Interesting. Yeah. Interestingly, expectation of not having expectation can also become an expectation, you see. So
Yeah.
it's a vicious loop that way.
Yeah, the next question is, how do you deal with the notions of privacy in sharing during the dialogue sessions, since students may share private information?
You shared, I think, something.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. So sometimes we had to say, and sometimes it becomes a joke. What is said in dialogue remains in dialogue. Sometimes the children will tell parents that. But I think the caution is when something is shared and it is in a certain context, we do speak with them and say, can you just not go and take it outside and blurt it out somewhere, talk about it out of context. Yeah, that is what we do now. If it happens that it's mentioned outside, yeah, then we have to address that situation. I don't think, actually, sometimes young children, like I was saying, young children will say a lot of things, right? And sometimes they do share things that they probably shouldn't, or maybe it's not the right place. And if it's about their family, sometimes we've gone and we've spoken with them or their families and said, your child has said this. So it's interesting for us to handle that situation, but nothing intensely,
I mean, they are actually, children have their own filters,
yeah.
and they are quite careful not to share that way private stuff. Some things may come out and we tend to ignore that, just gloss over it, maybe change the topic. But interestingly, just yesterday, some 12-year-olds were saying that this is an emotionally safe space for them. I wonder what they meant by that, because they do share a lot, they do reveal a lot, but yet they feel safe. So maybe privacy as a notion comes from, it rests on the assumption of fear, that when this information about me is known to others, it'll be bad for me. It feels often that they don't feel that way. Of course, it can emerge like
yes.
That. Very true.
We have to be sensitive about that, and we have to talk to other students also. But in general, during dialogue classes, we also share that you don't need to share the details, because the feeling behind the detail is more important.
Yeah.
It's not exactly what happened. That's many of the time that's irrelevant, even though the feeling might have emerged from that.
So hope that addresses it to some extent. We'll go through some others, and if we haven't addressed something, we can come back. How do you teach students to dialogue?
Well, I'll take a jab at it. Let's see if it works out, because I don't know how you can teach anyone to dialogue. Or this is not a taught thing. Maybe I can say it like that. It is an attitude more so rather than something that can be like skill-based learning. Not that skills are not there, but it needs to start with an attitude. So if we start with that, the dialogue is a space where we don't necessarily need to reach conclusion, at least that anticipation is not there. And that needs to start from the teacher or from the facilitator. There is something that is brought into that space that we are not used to. Usually we are going from one thing to the other, and we are trying to move from conclusion to conclusion. And here everything is just, how to say, there are no conclusions, but we are trying to see, like, let's say if our psyche is, let's say, is a cloth, is made up of cloth, how it is woven, what fabric it is, not whether what fabric would be better or not. I don't know if that answers the question.
I think over the years, they learn some parts of dialogue, like not interrupting each other, listening, not, what do you say, not laughing at each other, or they do quickly learn what kinds of questions are brought to dialogue. This kind of learning happens just through doing it. It's not explicitly taught. And I wouldn't say they all, like, we all get it completely right. No, that's
Yes.
it's not like that. It's not like there is the right way to do it. It's, and like you said, it's more the spirit of it.
It'll be
Okay.
how we approach it as well, because they'll be watching what we do. And if we're also open to them pointing out things to us, that, oh, that was a judgmental thing you said, Nagini, to some student or whatever, we should also be open to that, and we can learn from that. I think.
Okay, the next, should I read?
Yeah, read.
Next question is, can we, this is a comment sort of thing. Can we get any reading by CFL or others on these dialogue classes to dig more about it? We do have such informal, unstructured spaces at our learning center where children come to share their feelings and troubles on regular interval, either in groups or as individuals. How to convert those into formal dialogue spaces?
Yeah, we can definitely send out some references. If you send us an email, there are some nice writings we can refer you to. Just one clarification. Coming to us to share their feelings and troubles, we have to have other spaces for those. It can't happen only in this space, in the sense that this space is also for challenging yourself in a little way. If you're feeling lonely, you're not going to get comfort in dialogue class. You may get comfort by going and talking to a friend or a parent or even a teacher, but it's not comfort that you will get from dialogue class. What you will get is some good and powerful questions to pose to yourself about your loneliness, right? I think it would be something nice to have. This was Srinivasa. It would be nice for you to have separate spaces for this kind of interaction, and not to close off the spaces for sharing feelings and troubles. Those are separate ones.
It's because I think you mentioned it's not a counseling space, but those, what Kamala said, those powerful or good questions that might ask you about the loneliness could actually loosen your sense of loneliness.
Yeah.
Could potentially do that.
Here is a question that we can ask ourselves and see what answers comes in, and then let me reflect upon how it is different. Most of the time, when do we feel like that we need to have a dialogue? And I feel for most of us, most of the time, the answer would be when something goes wrong. I think we need to separate this dialogue space from that. It is something does not need to go wrong or very right, whatever. It's in normal daily life. That's where these things needs to be questioned. And especially, let's say if something goes wrong, it's very difficult to talk about it at that time. These dialogue spaces are somewhat safe spaces where feelings might emerge. We might talk about feelings also, but it's relatively secure space, relatively not heightened feeling space at that point. So we can actually look at those feelings, maybe relatively objectively most of the time.
Yeah, we can share
But
some
we have-
readings.
We can.
At the end, we will share a slide where you can, about the information, how you can reach CFL.
Yeah.
So you can find the information there. Yeah.
The next one is, how do you encourage young adults who seem to have a strong sense of righteousness to suspend that for a while during a dialogue?
But I don't know, I would like to change the question slightly. I don't know how to encourage someone to change their feelings. We have no clue about that, how to encourage someone, force someone to change their feeling. But the fact that this sense of righteousness is there, that can be talked about. How does it come? How does it expresses? What is the content of it? I think in seeing that, something might emerge. Not a guarantee, but something might emerge in that. But if we start, okay, you drop your sense of righteousness and then come to dialogue, it doesn't seem like it seems like we're starting from expectation and then going into the dialogue. Yeah. Would you read?
Good. Yes, we feel dialogue is important for students to open up. In beginning, can be structured and topics given before to prepare, but later as they open up can be spontaneous. Okay, that's a comment.
Yes, yeah.
Actually, it feels a bit more like the reverse process. Yeah, in the sense it starts out very spontaneous because of the age group. And, but yeah, in terms of us providing more structure, that's true. Yeah,
Yes.
we can go on to them.
Will CFL hold any physical seminar in the coming future?
Why not? Yes, maybe, hopefully.
It's a good idea, but yeah, nothing planned just yet.
Yeah.
When we plan, we will inform.
Through the same channels, I suppose. Comment. Okay, that was, I completely agree with the comment about spirit of dialogue needs to pervade other spaces also. Else it would become just another talk class. Yes. Okay,
Could you please throw more light on better not to
This is one of my students. I just asked that question. What are the conditions for good dialogue? I don't know. I think he or she just said, better not to daydream. It was a very cute thing. So we put it up on the slide. I don't know what the child meant. Because there isn't any fear in that if they daydream, it's not like they're going to be punished for it, or there's no consequence of it. It's just that, yeah, I don't know what the child meant. I'm sorry, I'm not able to shed more light on it. Yeah.
Maybe they're saying it because sometimes when you're talking, let's say 10, 15 people are sitting together, it is quite possible, and I'm sure all of us have experienced in some time in our life, and or it may happen quite often, that the topic that is being discussed is not so interesting, or what my thoughts are, they are more stimulating, more powerful, right? And then you just go and suddenly you realize, okay, I am
in a
Yes.
room with some
Yes.
other people.
Yeah, in company meetings, apparently I hear that it happens quite often. So
Okay. Yeah, I'm going to read more.
Okay. There are different modes of communication, debate, conversation, etc. So there ought to be a way where you can structure the way one dialogues. Yeah, I think we tried to share some aspects of the structure, the way we structure it. For instance, the fact that it's regular, it's weekly. There is no so
The teaching it's a more equal space.
it's a more equal space. We're sitting together and talking together. Many aspects of structure are there. I think one of the many times parents do share with us that they find it difficult to have conversations with their children. And one of the reasons I've always wondered is, do our students just accept that this is on the timetable? It's part of our curriculum and we will meet every week. Some weeks I may resist, some weeks I may not, but this is going to happen. It's kind of a choice that's coming together. That's the best part of the structure, I think, that while sometimes people have said, oh, then it loses its spontaneity and it needs to be spontaneous. Yeah, you can have that also. But this structured, regular space, even if you think you have nothing to talk about, it's okay. We'll all come, we'll sit together and something will come up, right? So that's the biggest part of structure, I think. Yeah. Yeah.
Could it be said that there's a culture around dialogue that's learned over time?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think that's the best way to put it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not, I think, like we mentioned a while back also, it's not the exact details. It may be the culture that you learn sort of unconsciously, not as a things to do, like these steps you take, and therefore you'll reach to have a great dialogue. That is not the.
By the way, we should share. You might think that this is dialogue class is the one class where you don't get homework, but that's not true. Some of our colleagues have given homework. For example, why don't you notice this week times when you feel like you want things to go your way? Or why don't you notice this week times when your mind has been just complete, you don't know how you got to where you are standing. So simple observation and attention exercises we do give. It's not always done. There is no notebook.
Yeah.
Yes.
Children don't always remember to do
It's not
this.
submitted for correction.
Yeah. You can suggest a method, different activities, tools to initiate dialogue. What are your views on dialogue on digital spaces, challenges, as well as what are the ways to deal with it?
Digital spaces is media.
Let's take the first one.
Okay.
So yeah, just quickly a few things we had mentioned. For instance, having everyone in the group write questions on a piece of paper, which are dialogue type questions, which they can learn over time, and put them in a box, and every week take something out and go into that. It can be anonymous or not. Just give time at the beginning for children to bring up something, but the facilitators, the adults, always have something in the back of their mind in case nothing comes up. The third thing is just having volunteer children every week to bring up something. Other things which have worked, I can say for younger children, maybe in particular, or some groups, it depends on the dynamics, is to give a scenario, which is a skit is done. So they're broken into groups and a scenario is given to them. And then they have to act it out and the others watch. And that I found has worked really nicely, because sometimes the children, you don't even have to maybe talk after that, because they say, oh, I see that I do that. I am bullying a person in that way. I am doing it so subtly, and I can see myself in that skit. So that is just a moment where they see that. Or reading stories and extending from that is a nice way also, because that's something that's out there and they're commenting on characters in a story or a song maybe, or making up little, what do you call it, case studies and going into that. Especially around the theme of sexuality, maybe that is a place for using that as a method, maybe. So I hope this gives you some ideas and tools.
We do use some kind of media. Sometimes we show them a video that relates to what we are talking about. Sometimes we have extended reading session and something keeps coming. So we read a paragraph or two and then we talk about that. So various.
Also, if the dialogue is slow to start, or if the children are kind of quiet or dull in some ways, I know a colleague has tried this. So the two teachers in that space started off the conversation and they said, you just listen. If you feel like interrupting, you do that. And within, I think, 5 to 10 minutes of that conversation, the children did have something to say, and then they did bring it up and they wanted to say something. So you can try so many things. And if you meant digital spaces, if you meant on Zoom, we did have to do it during COVID. It wasn't fun, but we did it. We kept it up as far as possible. Yeah.
If a student shares a view that is dramatically different from their peers, does that lead to any conflict outside of the dialogue space? How can we as educators help students to be accepting of diverse views, even if we staunchly believe in our own views?
Very nice question.
So both things have happened in terms of what we have seen. When there are dramatically different views, it has allowed a very interesting conversation to take place after the dialogue class, because during the dialogue class, teachers are there, so they may not say something that is quite harsh or something like that. But later, it has turned into a very interesting conversation, even though it has started started with a difference, because the fact that other person is sharing, that means that person is being vulnerable, sharing their thoughts and as openly as possible. So then it becomes a really interesting way of exploring many things together. Experiments can be done and trying to see which one is leading to truth or not. But the attitude or openness is necessary. If one is not open, then this is sort of disastrous at times. If one is like, this is my view, I'm going to hold it. That is very difficult to talk about. And that does make things difficult. And yeah, it's possible that students don't talk to each other for a few days. The second part of this question, accepting diverse views. I don't think that as teachers here, as educators here, we're trying to do that. That we have there are 100 different views about a particular thing. And we are trying to accept all of those. That is not the point. At least that's not how we see it. We see it, can we look at all of those and see how we can reach to sort of truth in some ways, because views are essentially opinions in some ways, and opinions need to be suspended if we need to find truth. So the point is not to have many views, diverse views, and having students to accept them. However, at the same time, is not to put some person down, like other person down, only because they have certain opinion. That is also not the point. So there needs to be a sensitivity, and if that sensitivity is not there, that needs to be talked about first before we talk about the views.
Is there a possibility to dialogue with Kamla and Agni and Sachin in this session? Yeah, this format is not allowing this. Morgan, if you could come to school one day, definitely. Okay, then that is you also the email ID. Would you also say that the dialogue space is one where we all learn to hone critically on something in a healthy way? Yeah, critically. I just wanted this word, this critical thinking is one, no, it's quite common. And it usually to me means that you are able to analyze arguments very well, and you're able to point out what's wrong in what somebody else has said, or maybe even what
like a debate.
Like a debate. So it's not really a critical thinking space, because there are, what does it mean to look at oneself with complete honesty and to look at the other person with compassion? I don't think this is critical thinking. This is something else. But that may be what you meant by critically. So I'm just saying.
Yeah. How do we suspend our idea of what is right as an adult from what is right for children or young adults in the day-to-day functioning of the learning space? Isn't that what you kind of talked about?
Yes.
Like bringing our own ideas in, we have to be careful of that. And interestingly, the other day we went into how do we know what is right and wrong in our dialogue with 10, 11-year-olds. We were talking about that, like how do we know what's right and wrong? Yeah.
Maybe Manoj, can you say a little bit more about what do you mean by what is right as an adult and what is right for children? If you can say that, that will be helpful in terms of answering.
We can come to it.
Yeah, we can come back to it.
Yeah. Okay. Do you sometimes ask students to visually map their own perceptions and experiences about a topic? If so, after that process, how would you guide students to discuss the collective map they have created?
I'm guessing he means like a kind of mind map, like to literally draw your feelings out.
Or just write down what's coming to,
on a
what is the response?
This is a very nice idea.
Yeah.
I have not tried it personally in this space, but
Kirti
some
has
teachers
tried it
have.
many times. I have tried also.
Yeah, you can say yes.
Yeah.
Yes. You can say your brain thing afterwards. Yeah, go ahead.
How would you guide? So the fact that map has been created collectively, that itself initiates the sense of sharing, right? Because it is not that after the map has been created, we have started sharing. We have started sharing already. The fact that these emotions or these feelings have come there already, it really is quite easy after that. There's no need to be guiding in terms of, okay, you have to start sharing it like this. We can take up any feeling and we can say, can you say a little bit more about it? And that person felt completely opposite to you. What could be the reason? So we can ask leading questions like that if the students are not taking it up. But most of the time after these activities, it's quite common that students are quite bubbly about it.
Social cutout. Nice. I actually would be curious if I tried this. I would be utterly silent for 5-10 minutes while we all just look at what we've created. Silence might be a very powerful thing at that point.
Yes.
We
are
Manoj was going to explain to us about
yes, what is right as an adult and what is right for children. So hopefully he's writing.
Another, you want to share about your brain? What you guys do?
Manoj,
can I unmute and speak? Yeah.
Yes,
Sure.
Manoj, please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you so much, first of all. I think the first 35 minutes, that thing was wonderful, actually. I've been looking about understanding about the dialogue process and all. So my question is more like a day-to-day functioning. Let's say, if I have to give an example, let's say we, like as part of some work, we are sweeping a particular room. And we as an adult, we might have to, or I personally would like to concentrate on the quality aspect, whereas the children or the young adults might want to just finish off the task. So there's so there's a difference in the point of view. So I see that there's a lot of issue with the relationship that's happening because of this, because of that. So how do we suspend, or what is the way forward in those aspects? So that's my question.
Yeah, so I do keep these things separately. So we do daily sweeping with them. If it's not being swept properly according to me, I simply tell and I ask and I get it done. And there is cooperation. But at a later time, in the next dialogue opportunity, then we can bring it up more generally and say that, what do I do when I can ask the children? What should I do when I'm seeing something not being done well and I'm getting upset, I'm getting agitated? Help me. How am I supposed to deal with that? And they are actually, they like it if you're vulnerable with them. They feel much better if you say you are irritated. Okay. I'll just remember one conversation where I said, I'm getting more and more irritated because no one's helping me. You're not cooperating with me. And then they very seriously listened and they said, before you get irritated, can you just say something? Can you just give us a code word? Can you just remind us? Can you speak a little louder because we didn't even hear you? So sometimes some vulnerability from our side, so they know that there's an emotion here too. That might help.
Yes. No, another time, sometimes just see, we need to ask why the child or anyone is not doing that particular job properly. We need to understand that also. So it could be that that person, the child needs to go and meet someone, so there's hurry. Or there is I don't want to do that particular job because it's disgusting or whatever, or it is below me. That could be another option, another thought that might be going on. So there could be various things, not limited to just three.
Or they just don't see it actually. To them, that is to another person, that is a clean job. My standards are different, like Manoj was saying.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I think we need to look at it together. So what Kamala said, I think that needs to happen. At the same time, we need to look at it together, that what is this cleanliness that I'm demanding? Not that you should not demand cleanliness, but see the scope of it. Is it that I have very strong habit of seeing everything properly, and there is some image like that. How does it mean to clean it? And I'm expecting that from a very young child who may not know. So what does it mean to help the young child learn that this is, you see that it could be done differently also, or you can, like, if you're sweeping, take it from underneath the table also, right?
I hope that addresses. Okay.
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 Once you become one with them, they.
Someone. Yeah.
No, she said, but about
Yeah.
Kamla's experience.
Yeah, correct. The educator is also vulnerable in the dialogue space. And any tips on how the educator should deal with their own feelings?
It's a good one.
I mean, it's rarely that if I think of the range of feelings I have, one is often very moved by what children are saying. That's one emotion. Then one is sometimes irritated. I think maybe with older children, when that sense of righteousness that somebody mentioned, when I take it very personally and it becomes my ego and that young person's ego, then there can be irritation and anger. But that's rare. I mean, if you have created a relationship with these young people outside the dialogue space on an ongoing basis, and there is affection, just generally there's so much give and take, then the feelings are not so, they're not so overwhelming, I don't think, because they get what is the word,
diffused,
dissipated and diffused through the day and the week. No, if I was coming to see them only for dialogue once a week, that would be a very different experience. We're living together, and this is one of the things we do. That doesn't feel so overwhelming at all.
No, I was just thinking of what, again, coming back to Sachin mentioned in the recording that I should be careful not to bring my strong feelings. Like, I know you may mean something else, vulnerable, in your question, Dharmaraju, but I think if I have very strong feelings, those actually need to be looked at on opinions on things. So I need to watch to not bring those in, or to just look at those, because with those can bring my own sense of righteousness or anger or irritation about something else happening in the world. So I have to be careful of that. And therefore the two adults there is nice, because one could actually caution the other and say, hold on, you're getting carried away, or
No, we do need to keep in mind that we are the adults there, because children are children after all, right? So we need to have some sense of that what to bring, what not to bring. Not that something is banned or something is completely not allowed, but I can shout at them, right? And they will be quiet. Yeah, I can bring something very strongly, and for that moment they may say, yes, I understand that, and they will listen. And we might have a sense, okay, I conveyed something, and now that's the way to convey. But we need to be careful there. We need to keep this in mind, and maybe not bring everything that we are struggling through in that. Be a little bit, what do you say?
Discreet.
Discreet, yes. Thank you for the word, yeah.
So that we don't have any other listed questions.
We have a slide for them.
Yeah,
Yes, we have a few more minutes.
Few more
Yeah.
minutes, about 5-7 minutes, if there's anything else. Oh, yeah. Does it happen that students speak something in these dialogues and do what they like to do afterwards? For example, one student or a group may talk virtuously about cleaning their own spaces and then shirk responsibilities when they have to do it. Does this amount to their inability to overcome impulse or hypocrisy? After all, they learn these tricks of hypocrisy from society. What do you do in such cases? Firstly, I think we have to watch, even adults, it's not just students, because adults are obviously susceptible to all this as well. But yeah, you want to...
I think maybe I'm giving too general an answer, but hear me out. When one watches one's own psychological being, what movements takes place here, okay? Some of these things reveal like when you observe yourself, it will reveal how your mind is working, and then might be very similar how other person's mind is working. So when we say that they have learned tricks of hypocrisy, yes, but is there vulnerability there? Can there be vulnerability? Is there a potential to see that for the child that that's exactly is what is happening? I think it opens up in that particular form. But if I go in the classroom or a dialogue class, that I need to change, I need to show them that you're hypocrite, that's a very, that's not the spirit of going into dialogue, because you've already decided that you're being hypocrite, you have already fixed the child and their feeling, and then you're moving from there. So maybe the idea would be to move from something flexible to flexible rather than complete concrete to concrete. Because there are no answers, there are no right answers. And no matter what rule you make, no matter what arrangement you make, I think our brains are quite capable of subverting all of those tricks. And maybe that's what they've learned from society. So when they experience an adult or someone else who's not judging them at that point, who's actually open to listening to them, something changes there, something opens up.
I think if we can just go on gently reminding, I don't know, it would be nice to see if that just something shifts at some point in time. And I'm saying this very calmly now, of course, because it doesn't come out so gently all the time.
Yes.
But yeah.
I mean, I feel like in our experience, children don't talk virtuously about much. This
Yeah,
in
that's
this
also
phase, there are no rewards for appearing, to say the right thing. So that's part of the culture. Maybe I don't know whether they do that at all. No,
sometimes they
When
can
not
honestly
remember-
say, I only do this when I once I said I wash my
Yeah.
plate when the teacher's watching me. And I don't, or I don't wash it properly if they're not around.
It's interesting. One can be open about that and completely vulnerable at that point. What gives, what provides such a secure space, right? Maybe that's of utmost importance.
Last question, maybe. This last one says, is there a relationship between contemplative inquiry and dialogue? I don't know. I haven't read anything about contemplative inquiry, unless you mean, I mean, just the words, to me, it sounds that it is. It is sounding very similar to me.
It seems more like a dialogue with oneself.
No, but I guess one can, I mean, in the contemplative traditions, if one sits together and has joint inquiry with others, that is dialogue, essentially.
Yes, if you mean that, yeah.
Yeah. And this last one.
In many government schools, dialogues which we will envision with compassion and empathy are not in alignment with what they experience in their home. I'm focusing on socioeconomic notions of children in creating liberal space for dialogues. What could be different strategies to carry dialogues in government schools?
This is a beautiful question. Can I request that you send it on the email, and we will maybe take it up on an email thread, because you just can't do justice to a question like this now.
Yes.
In this time, but please do,
Rangana,
because I would like to explore the question.
you can send it to
Thank you.
info@cfl.in. We'll
You
put
wanna
up
show
a
that
slide.
Yes.
Yeah.
So if we can, we are running out of time also.
Last slide.
So we will share one slide now with all of you. Some of the questions hopefully have been answered, but if you have more questions or you need to talk to us, the information how to reach us is going to be available on the next slide. Okay.
Thank you so much for
Thank you.
participating, for attending, participating. It was enjoyable for us to have this, even though it was largely one way, but it was really enjoyable. Thank you.
And please do visit us
Yes.
Yes.
physically, as they say.
2 a.m. in Toronto.
Okay. Okay.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for
all.
joining us.
We'll just put up a
Um,
slide now. And if you're interested in learning more about CFL, please do visit our website, cfl.in. We'll just have that slide in a moment.
Yes.
So it's written there. And of course, if you're interested in working with us, there's also a link on the screen. cfl.in/working-at-CFL. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
We'll keep that up for.
Yes, we will keep the slide for a minute or so, and then we will end the meeting. Guru, we cannot see the slide. Yes, we can see it now. Thank you. Okay, hope everyone has noted the website.
Yep.
Bye, everyone.
Okay.
Thanks for
Have a
joining.
good weekend.
Guru, if you can end the meeting. Thank you.